Project Green School Education as a promotion of sustainable use of cultural and natural heritage and resources. Project code 15.2.1001. The project is co-financed by the European Union through European Regional Development Fund under the Intergraph 5A Romania-Bulgaria program. The content of this movie does not necessarily represent the official position of the European Union. A shepherd from the next village was grazing his herd when a vulture dashed from the sky, grabbed the fattest lamb, and flew away. The shepherd decided to punish the predator. He slaughtered an enormous ram, he hid under its carcass and started to wait with a knife in his hand. The vulture came flying, grabbed the lamb, and picked it up in the air together with the man. This ridiculous story that turned into a legend throughout the White Mountains was considered trustworthy by many not so long ago. In search of the words of the story, we embark on a real adventure in the mountain of Natural Park Vulture Mountain. Our safari walk leads us to the mysterious world of birds that are little known in Bulgaria, the vultures. The griffon vultures are the largest birds found in Natural Park Vulture Mountain. The species is included in the red list of the endangered species in Bulgaria, and Vulture Mountain is one of the very few places where you can observe this bird species. The path to the mountain where the vultures could be seen starts from the village of Dolno Zirovo. The village is located 25 kilometers away from Montana and just 10 kilometers away from the resort town of Vršac. There are cognitive signs on the path into the mountain that inform us about the route and the presence of vultures in National Park Vulture Mountain. Georgi is our guide. He takes care of and observes the vultures in the area for several years now. Birds that we considered extinguished for years, not only here, but also all over Bulgaria. The last reliable information that we had about the griffon vulture in the area is from the middle of the 20th century. This shows that this type of vultures has not nested here for more than 60 years. The last reliable information that it has nested comes from 1931 nearby Cherepich. It could be said with great certainty that these species are extinct for more than half a century now. In the past, the Egyptian vulture, black vulture, was seen in Ukraine, Romania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, and a few pairs are on the verge to be extinct forever in Greece and Albania. In Bulgaria, thanks to the European project Recovery of the Griffon Vulture as a nesting species in Vulture Mountain, young griffon vultures were imported from France and Spain and were successfully acclimatized. First, they enter an adaptive aviary, which is a big bird cage where the vultures can fly and adapt to the environment. They live in these big cages, the so-called aviary, for about a year. They are big in size, tens of meters long and wide. It depends on the terrain, but ours here are 4 meters high, and in places there are some bigger ones. This is important for the birds so they are more free and do not atrophy. After being looked after like that, they get used to the terrain, and furthermore, these are the former nests of the species. We know that was used the nest here in the past. They look at this place, we feed them here, and the idea is to make them recognize it as their second birthplace. Afterwards, we'll let them in the nature. This happened a few times for these 5 years. Since year 2010 up to this summer, we have led 46 griffon vultures here in the Vulture Mountain. The feeding up is a very important moment for the existence of the vultures in a free environment. Many years ago, there were sheep pens on the board meadows in the Vulture Mountain. In there, they used to raise hundreds of sheep, goats and cows, which were also food for the vultures. At one point, they were taking the people's property. They put them in state farms, the animals go to some kind of confined spaces, and there were much less animals left in the mountain. Veterinary services are created and they ban leaving dead animals in the nature. This, though, restricts the access of vultures to food. Humans are the ones to rely on to provide food for the birds. Feeding is carried out in strictly defined places, which are obligatory enclosed, away from the springs and the domestic animals. This is exactly the same type of place here in Vulture Mountain. It is enclosed with a net and only the birds have access to it. And in fact, there we periodically take out the food. These are the carcasses of dead domestic animals. The purpose of this artificial feeding cup is very important because there cannot be vultures without the food. As for every living organism, food is fundamental, and for the vulture, these are carcasses of dead animals. The good news coming out of all these efforts is that 5 years after the birds enter their natural habitat, they already have their first offspring. This is the first griffon vulture chick in a decade that is hatched in the Vulture Mountain. This was the first griffon vulture chick in Bulgaria that flew away after these reintroduction projects. This year, we already have 4 small griffon vulture chicks. Of these, which were released, about 10 pairs made their nests, but many birds are still young and inexperienced. Some of them had their nesting failed, but we cannot tell with precision how many. The size of the rocks is too large and we cannot see directly what happens in the nest. But these young birds are already very big in size and in the face before taking off. The nesting period of the griffon vulture is very long. Breeding begins from the winter. The pairs form in December and January. They nest in large cliffs, similar to this one here. This is the typical location. They nest in niches, sites protected from wind, sun and rain, in similar, more protected locations. There, they make their nests that are not big, but have enough nesting material. The female lays one egg and hatches it for about 54 days. Afterwards, the little vulture's chick stays in the nest for more than 4 months. This indicates a nesting period of more than 6 months, a very long one. This is a big problem for the vultures because they reproduce very slowly and become sexually mature after the 5th year. Imagine how many dangers these birds need to overcome until they become 5 years old, and then these which survive can produce an offspring. The griffon vulture is one of the largest birds that could be seen in Bulgaria and Europe. The head of the griffon vulture is white, the wings are very wide, and the tail is short. It has a white goiter and a black pecker. For a day, they can travel maximum for about 300 and more kilometers. Of course, this happens under certain conditions, in sunny weather, in stronger wind and if the bird is in good condition. Especially the older birds can travel for a few hundred kilometers a day. The old birds have a wingspan of about 2.60 to 2.70 meters. They weigh about 8 to 10 kilograms. This is an impressive size. Plumage is different in an elderly and in young, which is typical. There is no difference in the sexes, male and female, as there is in many species of birds. But there is no such thing with the griffon vulture. Male and female can be recognized by their behavior and size. With the birds of prey in general, the female is larger than the male, and with some species the difference is quite big. The explanation of this is that the females take care of the offspring. They protect the nest and spend most of their time around their little vulture chick. This is why they have to be more powerful and stronger in order to respond to the aggression of some species that want to kill the offspring. The interesting about the griffon vulture is that they nest in groups and not in pairs. This is important for the nesting too, but it's also very important when searching for food. In nature, the food searching strategy of the vultures is to go in a chain of birds in flight. Each one of them observes a part of this territory, and this is a very typical way for vultures to search for food. Typically, the griffon vultures live quite long. In nature, their age reaches 20-25 years. However, unfortunately, deaths are very often. Basically, these birds do not have many enemies, but humans are the biggest enemy of them all. All occasions related to their mortality are caused by the humans themselves. This is electricity, wind generators, killing, poisonous substances. Otherwise, in nature, you can see some predators such as the owl, in some cases wild cats to enter the nests, but it is seldom, and these are exceptions. Overall, the species has very few natural enemies. The main problem that causes their mortality rate are the unsecured pillars that cause a certain death of the rare birds when hit. We have many birds that perished because of the electricity. It seems that our pillars in Bulgaria are very dangerous. In many places in Europe, the pillars are secured for the birds, but ours, with low and average voltage, are not. Here we found 4 perished vultures. Certainly there are others that have perished, and in Bulgaria there are more than 20. This turned out to be an incredible problem. That's why we started working with different power companies, and we insulate dangerous pillars in different places in Bulgaria. If we do not minimize these negative factors, it means we do nothing. If such factors that kill birds are still existing, it means the problem stays. And this is the goal, to reduce such negative factors. The vultures have an undeserved reputation and significant importance for the nature, say the experts. They are important for the maintenance of the biological balance, and they do not attack wild animals. The griffon vulture is a part of the ecosystem. It is positioned in one of the upper levels of the food pyramid. This is the species which distracts the dead animals and prevents the spreading of diverse dangerous infections, the contamination of water resources and soil. Vultures are the natural cleaners. They are a part of the food chain, which was unfortunately interrupted in the past by the human. Now we strive to recover everything naturally so it becomes the same as it ever was. The birds can be observed from a specially built shelter in the Vulture mountain. From there is a beautiful view towards the rocks where the vultures usually land, so they can take a rest and observe the surroundings. The location has excellent conditions for observation of more than 20 birds with binoculars and a sighting tube. The specially built shelter is not more than 500 meters away from the adaptation cage of the vultures and the 2 rocks where the birds usually land. This gives you the opportunity to have an interesting experience that is full with activities that are different from the standard school activities and curriculum forms. We can show them the nature in the area that is very well preserved, and in particular the griffon vultures. In this moment we can observe nearly 40 vultures that were marked by us, and there are some that are still unmarked. A black vulture was seen here this year for the first time, and it hasn't been seen for more than 67 years. There is no data and documents proving that this species was presented in the area. So there are many things to be seen. The most important for this movement is to be controlled. Bulgaria is a beautiful country, and there is no doubt that its nature is incredible. 409 species of birds were found in it. 327 are under protection, one of which are the vultures. The Vraca mountain gives the unique opportunity to see these birds. It is only necessary to be willing to go to a photo safari in the mountain, and why not to have a tent, so that you can have an adventure in the Vraca mountain. Project Green School Education as a promotion of sustainable use of cultural and natural heritage and resources. Project code 15.2.1001. The project is co-financed by the European Union through European Regional Development Fund under the Intergraph 5A Romania-Bulgaria program. The content of this movie does not necessarily represent the official position of the European Union.